knowing who we are and what we do and our substantial commitment to changing the industry, what would be some of the things you would do to shine a light on the differentiation that we have as Art of Homeownership professionals? If I'm a real estate agent, how do I shine a light on what I'm doing differently than every other real estate agent? Or a mortgage professional, how do I shine a light on why I'm different than, the mortgage broker down the street? What would be some of the things you would do there? What would be the messaging around it to the consumer?
Well, the messaging is one thing. I'll get to that in 1 second. I would look at the activity. Right now, everyone's searching for a reason to call a client that isn't just about, right now, I want to, refinance your home or get you to move up into a home. If you can find a value-added reason to call a client and have a different conversation, that is going to inevitably lead into strategy, where they are currently, a needs analysis, et cetera. And so I would look at the ability to, if you have a tool like this, to be able to make as many appointments as I can, as quickly as I can, as often as I can, back to back, practice, remember, getting the reps in, to do a needs analysis and talk and share the story of what it is you're doing. Choose your 5 favorite elements of this. What are your 5, what you think are the most powerful value propositions that the Art of Homeownership offers, and do that. I would also begin by doing it with yourself, your friends, your family. Call somebody and say, hey, can I practice? If you believe that this is a valuable piece and you care about your customers and you believe that there's a long-term value, then your closest friends should all be on this program. They should all be enrolled in some way, shape, or form. And that is a great way to practice, because you can get feedback and you're putting your closest friends on this and family on this. And so I would be calling them to share with your favorite elements of this, and their questions will lead you down different paths. Did that answer that question?
Yeah, it did. I thought it was great. And then in terms of the conversation to the client, if I'm a real estate agent and I'm talking to maybe someone at a open house or a listing appointment, or Brent's asking, someone in my database, what do I say that really gets their attention, right? Because again, the Art of Homeownership is vast, right? To explain it takes a little bit of time, right? What can be the opening remark to grab their attention and get them to think, okay, I never heard that before. Like, this is different. This is unique. Maybe I'll let them keep going, or I'll pay attention for longer.
So I'm going to lean on you on this one. So let's do this back and forth a little bit. I'm going to talk about the philosophy or the strategy, and then you help me out with the actual content, because you have this. For me, the art of asking questions, and what I would call a power question. And a power question makes a client think. It stops them in their track. It hooks them to look at you and almost think to themselves, I don't know, but holy shit, I should know the answer to that question. Or no one's ever asked me that kind of question before. Or should I be asking that question? Should I know the answer to that? Whatever it is, it stops them in their track. So that buys attention. If somebody is at an open house or everything, we're trying to get their attention in some way, shape, or form. As you notice, see, my camera just went out. And so if we can capture their attention, get them to stop in their tracks for that one moment, that you can get the next 15 seconds with another question. And if your power question is asked correctly, and I'm going to ask you, Ryan, because I know you are full of these power questions, what would be maybe your top 5 favorite questions to ask? Because then those power questions, those ones that really stop, that hook people, set you up for a power response. And if I remember do you remember back in the day, did you ever read that book, Missed Fortune?
Yeah.
Remember Douglas Andrew, right? We had the power question, which was, hey, do you know how much interest rate your home equity is earning you? And they'd be like, oh yeah, it's and then they'd quote the appreciation of the home, which has nothing to do with earning interest on equity, because equity doesn't earn interest. But it would just begin this conversation of saying, well, I guess my equity earns nothing of interest. And all of a sudden they're stopped and think, I never thought about it. We knew that was such a powerful question that would engage in a bigger conversation. So what question, maybe I'd say your top 3 to 5 questions, have you found to be most powerful?
The one that we train our agents on the most is just simply asking, are you an Art of Homeownership member? Right? Because that almost everyone's going to say no to that, right? And they're going to say, no, what's that? Right? And it gives us the opportunity to say, oh, I'm sorry that your realtor or lender, whomever, didn't sign you up for that, but it's a valuable platform that helps you in kind of 6 unique ways as a homeowner or a prospective homeowner. Do you rent or do you own a home? right? And then we kind of get into that, and we practiced that firsthand when we were up on the Facebook campus, because if I'm honest, when we went there, I didn't really know what I was going to say to these people, right? Like they weren't thinking about real estate. They weren't thinking about mortgages. They were literally just walking from one place to the next on the Facebook campus, right? And so they'd stop by and I'd say, hey, real quick, I just want to make sure, are you signed up for the Art of Homeownership? They go, no, what's that? I go, oh, do you rent a home or do you own a home? Oh, I rent. Okay, well, is anybody helping you with these aspects of your life? No.
What are the
Okay.
these though? Which these aspects? Because I think that's the value.
Yeah. So is anybody helping you understand what your options are to purchase a home and is showing you the different areas that are helpful there? No. Is anybody helping you with kind of a home concierge to make sure that your current property is taken care of and you can relocate into the new home appropriately in the event that you want to buy one? No. Is anybody helping you kind of plan on an annual basis for when you may want to buy a home, and kind of created a roadmap and a game plan and a timeline for you? No. Right. So you're going to get no every time because we've set the questions up that way. And then you say, look, you hand them our flyers, say, these are the 4 things that, by becoming an Art of Homeownership member is going to help you as a renter, right? And if you ever do end up buying a home, here's all the ways it's going to help you then as well. So again, it's just getting people to think. Like we have, for everybody on the call, you probably know, you can go into the e-learning platform and we have our 12 disruptive questions, right? These are all questions that are meant to disrupt the pattern or the standard way of thinking for somebody, and they're more transactional, right? When someone's rate shopping or asking you to give your commission back. But yeah, I mean the questions you ask are going to be built around the fact that, to Renee's point, yeah, I don't have any of that stuff, and no one has ever asked me that. And one of my favorite questions to be asking right now is, when's the last time you sat through an analysis of your financial situation to plan your next real estate transaction?
Hmm.
The answer is never. 100% of the time, the answer is never. Right. And then I always apologize for that. I'm like, oh, I'm sorry no one's offered that to you yet. Most mortgage companies don't do what we do. This is kind of what makes us unique, and we'd love to help you with it. Right. And we're not selling anything. I don't even care if you ever buy a house or not. Right. The only thing I care about is that you have all the information, education to make a really smart decision. Right. So that's where you can kind of use this to, you don't have to tell everybody all 6 things right away. You just have to find the 1 or 2 key components of, oh yeah, I guess that is unique, or I didn't think about that. And that's going to disrupt their way of thinking, which allows you more time and allows you more impression.
I remember back in the day, my favorite question was, when was the last time you had your mortgage professionally reviewed? And works in real estate. When was the last time you had your real estate portfolio professionally reviewed? I don't have a portfolio. Or, what do you mean by professionally reviewed? Then all of a sudden now you're in the game, because now that question is differentiating you. So let me ask you this, Ryan, in terms of what are the current stats right now that are really sort of eye-catching disruptors right now? Like, how often are people moving? What are those things that, that if you were to tell me a couple different stats, because sometimes I love to use statistics with clients to get them to stop, and I'll use something very natural, which is, hey, do you have a second? I just heard some statistics recently, and I wanted to share them with you and tell me if have you found these to be true. And it's more of, now it's a collaboration. I just heard this, I'm sharing it with you. What's your take on this? Now it feels like an interview of some sort, and I'm asking for a collaboration. What stats right now are the ones that are sort of the most exciting?
I think a standout one, I don't know if we call it exciting, it's probably more unfortunate than anything else, is that, if you want to stop, if you're a real estate professional and you want to stop someone dead in their tracks at an open house or a virtual open house, and say, hey, I don't know, did you see that article that came out by Trulia that 44% of Americans have some form of regret after they buy a house? Like, did you get a chance to read that to make sure you don't have those regrets yourself? Right? Everyone's going to say no, and I guarantee you everyone's going to want to see that list. Right? They're going to want to know, what are the top regrets? What are the issues? What are the challenges? What should I be, knowing that I don't know? So I think that was a pretty telling stat. I think that the pessimism around buying a home is the lowest it's ever been since 1974, right? So, when I forget who did the survey, but I can find it. But we are, when asked, do you think it's a good time to buy a house? That percentage of people that say yes is the lowest it's ever been since 1974. And I think that'd be a great one to use. Like, hey, did you know that most people think this is the worst time to buy a house since 1974? No, why are you telling me that? Well, I just want to let you know that why it's a great time to buy a house because of that, right?
Mhm.
Like because of that reason, you have an opportunity to do something that most people aren't. And I'd love to talk to you about that, right? So that one's not necessarily art of homeownership specific. It's just another question to kind of stop people and have them think a little bit outside the box.
You know, it's interesting. Go back to the Trulia one. I think that's a powerful one. And so, if for what you guys don't know, like my job, my purpose, I guess, in this world is to work with people like Ryan who have the data, have the information, and then we can restructure the sequencing of the language to help maybe bring it to a more powerful way and through a process called framing. And so, what I'm hearing you say is that 44% of people have regret when they buy a home. I can think of a bunch of different ways to start that off and say in a one-on-one conversation to even say, look, I heard something recently that stopped me in my career in its tracks, and it forced me to really truly analyze and assess why I do what it is that I do, and I want to share that with you. Just that sort of dramatic pause in reality. And I think that people should stop in their tracks and say, wow, if 44% of people have regret, that means that we're not doing our freaking jobs right. We're not asking the right questions. And to your point, we're just putting them in homes and leave them out to dry. We're not asking the right questions. We're not doing the needs analysis. And that is, if you take ownership on that, you say, hold on a second, I got to get better at this. And so if you can take that sort of aha moment to the client meeting and to say, Mr. and Mrs. Prospect, Mr. and Mrs. Client, I got to share something with you that made me completely stop in my tracks and assess why it is that I do what it is that I do. And I want to share that with you. There was a study here recently done by Trulia. Have you heard of Trulia? And I might stop and ask that question because I like to ask questions. Questions are ways to ensure that the client is still engaged. And guess what? If they've never heard of Trulia, you might want to be able to answer that question. Otherwise, Trulia just means nothing, right? Is that Truvia? Is that the sweetener? Truvia? No, Trulia, right? We got to be able to answer that. So I try to make no assumptions. You say, have you heard of Trulia? And they go, yeah, of course, everybody's heard of Trulia. Well, they came out with a study that showed that 44% of people are having some form of regret after purchasing a home. Now, if you leave it there, you're not doing it right. You have to follow it up with this phrase of saying, so what that means to you is that most people in your position aren't being asked the right questions. And at the end of this transaction, over the course of my career, you're going to look at me and you're going to judge me. And you're going to either tell me that I helped you for the long term or I didn't. And I don't want to be judged in a way that I didn't help you. So I want to ask you some questions that maybe you haven't thought about. Is that okay with you? And all of a sudden now you're inviting a bigger conversation, but you've taken yourself out of the rate shopping game and moved yourself into the professional one. And so how do you overcome the customer that only wants a mortgage? Oh, great question. Nobody just wants a mortgage. Nobody wants a mortgage. Who
Right.
wants a mortgage? Yeah, let me get a payment, right? It's the client that thinks that they just want an interest rate and a payment. And they only think that because they haven't thought beyond that moment to think that the interest rate and the payment is going to accumulate over time, either into more wealth or more liability. And that is where your job comes into play to help them think beyond that, because nobody wants a mortgage. They want all the things that come with it, the benefits of it. I hope that
Yeah,
answered that.
that's actually the line I used on the Facebook's HR team when they said, yeah, we already have First Republic Bank and they give all the mortgages to our employees. And I said, well, I don't know if you're aware of this, but your employees don't actually want mortgages, right? What they want are homes. They want to grow wealth and they want to understand how to maximize tax benefits and create generational wealth. Like who's that? Right. And then they kind of opened up and that was kind of one of those disruptive questions. And that's what allowed us to kind of move in and talk about what we did. So yeah, I'd say to answer that question, people think that they only want a mortgage because honestly, they don't have anything else to compare it to.
Yeah.
Like what other mortgage company in America have you ever heard of anything other than just mortgages? Right. So yeah, they're just going to want a mortgage because they think that everything else you're saying is a sales pitch, which is why it's not necessarily what you say, but how you say it.
Yeah.
Which is why I would highly recommend talking with Rene about his Amplify program because it's not just the messaging, it's the way you say it, it's the believability, it's the timing of everything. So Lastly, Renee, I know we have about 5 minutes left here. For everybody who is an Art of Homeownership partner on this call, as we kind of said in the beginning, we're creating this community, right? We're creating this elite level of professionals, right? Real estate professionals and mortgage professionals that can stand alone and say, look, you can work with any of the 2 million real estate professionals in the country or the 600,000 mortgage professionals in the country, and you'll get just a house or just a mortgage, right? Or you can choose to work with us because the value we're going to provide you long term. What parting kind of words of wisdom would you leave us with as to how to create that sense of elite, right? Like to where the community knows, man, when I get a mortgage, I'm getting it with this guy, or when I'm buying a house, I'm buying it with this real estate agent, right? Because they just quite simply care more, right? They're going to give me way more value than anybody else in the marketplace. Like, how would you kind of frame that up to end us today?
I love that question. There's so many ways. I'm going to share with you something that I want to give you something tangible that you can use in multiple ways. I think, and I'm very opinionated on what's happening in today's marketplace and the need that we have for leadership. And when I say leadership, every one of you on this call is a leader in the sense that you're leading your clients, your referral partners, your teams through a transaction, through stormy times. And so you have to be able to lead people through this. And there's three words. When these three words and these three concepts are used together in a phrase, create such a powerful form of leadership. And the words are empathy, transparency, and authority. Individually, we know what empathy is, our ability to understand somebody. Transparency is being honest around what's going on. But authority creates the plan and confidence to move forward. And when you use all three of those together, it can sound like this. Look, Mr. and Mrs. Meyer, I know that these are scary times. I know that you've been watching the news and the media, and it has a very, very persuasive way of making us feel scared. And the truth is, we don't know exactly how all this is going to fare out. I can point to studies that are showing that we're going to be just fine. And I personally believe we're going to be just fine. But as far as what's happening with this pandemic, we don't know the end result of this. But I do know this, the authority. You see how I ran in empathy, the transparency, and the authority. But I do know this for sure, is that real estate will always be part of the wealth process. That right now is one of the most affordable times in history, the lowest interest rates that we could ever buy, and is one of the best times. And you have to be able to answer that best time to buy question in multiple different ways, and citing research and citing what's happening in the statistics and the numbers. But if you can put all three of those together, you are now leading the client through what's going on. Empathy and understand, look, and that empathy should be based on the needs and listening to the client and what they're actually feeling. If, I know that right now going through divorce is one of the last times and one of the last things you want to be thinking about. I know myself, I've been through a divorce and it's not easy. And I too felt that way. But I will tell you this, that you will thank yourself if you get focused on just these couple of areas, and I will be here next to you to help guide you so that by the time we get out of this, you're going to be X, Y, and Z, right? So empathy, transparency, and authority. And so be really good for the empathy part of listening to your client and paying attention to their body cues, their social cues, all of what's going on, and just listening so that you actually can be empathetic. And then be transparent on what you do know and what you don't know. But then have authority and be confident and bold in the decisions and the leadership stance that you want to take. And that comes from your belief and understanding of what you believe in this marketplace, and that right now is a fantastic time to be in this business. Put those three together: empathy, transparency, and authority.